I've spent the last year lying to my husband. And on our wedding day, I finally told him. During dinner, I got up and I gave a big speech. And in my speech, I mentioned a couple of things. And before I begin my story, I have two things that you need to know. The first is that our wedding was very DIY centered. And the second is that we are both massive nerds. A caveat to the second piece is that he is obsessed with Lord of the Rings and I have never read it. Now, you probably thought that this video was going to be about something drastic and crazy, and it kind of is, but not in the sense that you're thinking. I met my husband 7 years ago, and from the very first day, I knew that he was obsessed with Lord of the Rings. On our first date, he talked about it profusely, but that's because our conversation was really centered around reading and literature and what it meant to us. But I have never read The Lord of the Rings, ever. And I was never going to. And that's what I told him. Our engagement was 18 months long, and I knew that I wanted to do a lot of the decor myself and make like little personal touches everywhere I could. We got married on my parents' property, which really allowed us to kind of do anything that we wanted. My sister and her friend hung lanterns from the trees. I had friends paint cornhole games for us. Friend and I designed my own archway. I bought like 20 bouquets of flowers the day before the wedding, and me and my friends de-bouqueted all of them and put them into new vases for the centerpieces. I hand drew all of the table numbers and place cards for all 124 of my guests. Nate designed all the menus, and we even had cocktails like named after our cats. That was so cute. My mom's neighbor made the cake. Like, the list goes on. And for the most part, Nate knew about all of the DIY stuff that me and my friends were doing. However, he had no idea about the longest project that I did for our wedding. Like I said, from the very first day, I knew Nate was a Lord of the Rings nut, and I had no plans on reading it. I read over 100 books a year. I figured if I'm getting married to the man, I should probably read his favorite book. And in this case, there's 3. And in my defense, I did not want to read about men walking in the woods. It sounded really boring and kind of intimidating, but I stand corrected because I read all 3 of these books 3 times. And they are 5 stars. We got married on June 6th of this year, but on June 6th of 2025, I started reading The Fellowship of the Ring in secret. I pulled one of his battered copies from our library when he was at work, and I would read it. And then when I saw his location coming home, I would put it back on the shelf, and I would resume it again when he was at work. I told very few people about this endeavor because I really wanted to keep it a secret. And if you know me, I'm a blabbermouth and I love to yap. And so the fact that I was able to uphold this ruse of never reading Lord of the Rings for an entire year astounds me. I read the first 3 in about 3 weeks over the course of last summer. And then when I started going back to work because I'm a teacher, I listened to the audiobooks narrated by Andy Serkis on my commute and fell in love all over again. And then this is where things got a little bit concerning because not only did I read them, but I wrote a 130-page thesis on why Lord of the Rings is quintessential world literature. It's titled A Literary Exploration of the Lord of the Rings, a study on language, morality, and narrative form. Read, researched, and written by Catherine Barron. The central thesis reads as follows. J.R.R. Tolkien's seminal series, The Lord of the Rings, is the quintessential work of world literature because it established the blueprint of modern fantasy through unparalleled world building and linguistic depth, while also presenting enduring moral complexities, deeply human characters, and interconnected themes of friendship, sacrifice, prejudice, and the cost of heroism that continue to define storytelling today. When I started this project, I had no idea that I was going to end up writing something of this size. In order to do this, I knew I had to reread them again, but this time annotate them for quotes. Let's just take a look at Fellowship of the Ring because the other 2 match exactly what I've done here. Oh my God. Come on. I mean, even the box is cool. Look at the illustrations. You've got Frodo, Sam, and Gollum outside of Mordor. The Shire. The Fellowship with the Trolls. I also knew that I wanted to give him a new set of this series because his is like mismatching and ripped because it's all paperback and they're so old and well loved. So I got him a hardcover box set and it's actually illustrated. The cover is so pretty, but I went ham on the annotations. And then at the beginning of every single book, I did put a note to him and a key for all of the tabs. love these images so much. I felt like it really elevated the experience. And then at the end of each chapter, I gave a little note summarizing my thoughts as well. And the secret, though it was very hard to keep, was well worth the wait. During our wedding after dinner, I made a speech announcing this whole project to him, and it absolutely blew his mind. Not only did I shock him, but I got to shock 124 other people as well. Nate was so obsessed with this present, he literally started reading it the next morning. And afterwards, I've had several friends reach out to me to ask to read this. So Nate's on page 32. I'm gonna let him finish it, but then I was thinking of making a Substack and posting this on there. So let me know if you're interested on reading a bunch of essays on why The Lord of the Rings is quintessential world literature. I feel like I have officially solidified my place in nerd kingdom. And if you haven't read Lord of the Rings yet, you should, because honestly, they're all 5 stars. And I'm not just saying that. They are a journey, an emotional one, full of triumph and sacrifice and friendship. Tolkien writes about mercy, friendship, and grief with such tenderness, and shows us that the smallest people are often the strongest. But perhaps what I loved the most about these stories is that love is shown through loyalty, patience, and carrying each other through the darkness.